On this episode, we talk about Orton and Cena at Hell in a Cell, Daniel Bryan injury update, WWE2K15 DLC, Justin Roberts released, and more now on Byte That. Welcome everybody to episode 60 of Byte That, the somewhat maybe international professional wrestling podcast where we talk about the ups and downs of that which we love, which is Chrisley knows best. Thank you for everybody that hits the download button, checks out the podcast each and every week. Remember, we are available Tuesday nights on YouTube, Stitcher, iTunes, and a little bit of everywhere else. My name is Juan Velas. I am from San Juan, Puerto Rico, and joining me as always, first from Boston, Massachusetts, the man that's a little under the weather, but perfect in attendance, Ryan McNulty.
Juan, I'm trucking on. I'm doing good. A little bit of fun news is I saw in our emails that our little song, Let It Go, about CM Punk is actually reaching the SoundCloud download limit. So that's some encouraging news or weird or horrible news, depending on how you want to look at it. But hey, congratulations on people actually downloading your song.
Our first hit, and that's not my song, that's our song. We made that happen, peoples. And the other person that had a very big part of making me sound not absolutely horrible, all the way from the Double F in Manitoba, Keith Poshik.
Just call me a wizard, because that's what I do.
That is what you do, sir. And then for a little quick reference, if you haven't checked out the CM Punk Let Him Go cover, please do so. Go over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com.
But apparently don't download it on SoundCloud.
Yeah, it's reaching the limit. But yeah, go to our YouTube channel, Byte That Cast. It was a crazy thing. It's got over 12,000 views. 12,000, man. That's just ridiculous. But getting into Raw now, there are a couple of things that are slowly clearer. No, it does not seem, just for those people that are waiting, we are not getting a Bell in a Cell match. Okay, the Bellas are having a match at Hell in a Cell, but it's going to be some kind of stipulation that we'll talk probably next week or something else as we get more information. But getting into something that was very surprising, originally at Hell in a Cell, we were going to be getting John Cena versus Dean Ambrose, and the winner would go on to face Seth Rollins in the cage. But then Triple H comes out and actually says, you know what? We're going to have that happen tonight. So we got a contract on a pole match. Thank you, Vince Russo, between John Cena and Dean Ambrose. And my first thing, I always love taking these in little spurts here. Part one, when you heard this, were you in the boat of, great, we're getting this match, or okay, great, so we're getting a match without a conclusion that's going to lead to something else at the pay-per-view?
Exactly. When I first heard it, there was no way that match was going to end cleanly. Something was going to happen. The Authority was going to interfere. We've kind of been trained to think like that because there's been no clean finishes for Jesus Christ knows how long.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this on a pole match was an easy way to make a loss not feel bad for one or the other guy, because I mean, you saw how the match went on Raw. It's very much just a contest to run up and grab something, and not really a wrestling contest in any way. Yeah,
this really just seemed like a cheap stipulation to, number one, not make John Cena look weak. The WWE definitely doesn't want that to happen, and to put Dean Ambrose in the main event. I mean, they opened up the show, so I was on the boat, too, of like, okay, great. So the Authority's going to come out or something. They're going to take everybody out. But then we actually got this match. Now, of course, the way that it played out, wasn't... I mean, it was pretty much what we expected. It was not clean in any way. Dean Ambrose won, so that's a bit of a spoiler there. He's going to be taking on Seth Rollins at Hell in a Cell. But obviously, the way it played out, it was very much like, thanks to the Authority, thanks to everybody but Dean Ambrose's own will, he got that. So are you happy that he got that win despite the way he did?
I'm going to turn that question around on you because last week you were convinced that it was going to be John Cena versus Seth Rollins. Now that Dean Ambrose has actually won it, how do you feel?
I still think John Cena somehow needs to be involved. Brock Lesnar's not there, so don't get me wrong. The short answer is I'm happy. You know, Dean Ambrose is there. Now, John Cena obviously has that match with Orton, but it just feels weird that the main feud is between two guys from The Shield, and like we're trained, as you mentioned, Keith, so it's like the championship or John Cena. So here's a match with neither man, you know, in the main event scene. So I'm actually really happy about that, but also curious as to how they're going to somehow still make John Cena look like the primary attraction.
Yeah, you gotta love with that match, though, that they had to have some sort of interference. Like, Dean Ambrose can't even be good at just grabbing things from a pole better than John Cena, you know? They had to have some sort of fluky-ish win. And, you know, like, and you saw how it played out, though. You know, the way Ambrose won, it doesn't make John Cena look like a complete failure at all. But, yeah, you're completely right. John Cena's not in the feature match. Like, the feature match is Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins in a Hell in a Cell. And I think that's a really cool thing. And it's kind of showing how far these guys have come along, that they're looked at as the true main event of this pay-per-view, even if it is a B-level pay-per-view.
Do you think that's going to be the main event, though? Because maybe that's the feature match, but John Cena and Randy Orton still might end up being the main event.
I think it'll be the main event simply because the championship's not on the line, and I think there's enough backing towards Ambrose and hatred towards Rollins that the WWE can justify that. And it's not like John Cena's not at the pay-per-view, you know, so whatever, if you're getting both sides of the spectrum. Plus, you have, I mean, John Cena, Randy Orton, a match that we've never seen before, like, at all.
Ever.
Yeah, we'll never see again. I remember, I mean, think about this quickly. When we first got SmackDown versus Raw 1, well, the very first one, the trailer was like, you're finally going to be getting to play John Cena versus Randy Orton. Now, think about that. Just think about that. That game came out in 2004, a decade ago. And then here we are, you know, John Cena, Randy Orton, part 38, possibly.
But have they ever fought in Hell in a Cell? Because I don't think so. They fought in every single other match type under the spectrum, but maybe not Hayek.
Yeah, I love that term for it, by the way. The funny thing is, I love that this is basically the losers match, and obviously I read a report saying that
don't say that word.
Yeah, they were very careful about not calling it the losers match. It was just funny how Orton just comes in, he's like talking to Triple H, and he's just like, you know, let's do this Hell in a Cell match where, you know, I'll take the other guy, you know?
Yeah.
Whoever loses, you know,
Let's talk about wrestling logic for a second
for
here.
Hell in a Cell.
No kidding. Randy Orton goes into Triple H's locker room, says, I want to prove I'm the best in the company, so give me the guy that loses that match.
Yeah, that's the weirdest thing, because this is not a tinfoil hat. This is not a shut up smart thing. This is like, you know what, WWE? We are applying the very logic that you taught us, yet you're not applying it with this, because it very much feels like it's, you know what? We don't have Lesnar. We don't have the title. So throw in Randy Orton and Cena. That's, you know what? That'll make people happy. So throw that in there.
See, by doing this match, this on a pole match on Raw, they were trying to solve one problem but created another. The problem they were trying to solve by having the on a pole match on Raw was so that they could actually have set matches to build up for the pay-per-view. But then they created the problem of having, you know, if John Cena loses, then all of a sudden he doesn't have a match for the pay-per-view. So they had to kind of do this little safety net for the other guy, and it just comes together as completely thrown together pay-per-view matches.
But at the same time, have John Cena lose, have Randy Orton RKO John Cena after match, and boom, you have a way better build-up than I want to take the loser.
Yeah, I actually want to take this in two parts, because we're sort of leaving Ambrose and Rollins on the side. I want to sort of bring them back first, because when Raw concluded, I was like, holy crap, you know, Seth Rollins is the top heel. Like, think about how Raw ended. Like, during that match, Randy Orton seemed like a complete secondary character. Here's a former, you know, WWE World Heavyweight Champion, former World Champion, WWE Champion, third generation guy that, the WWE has built upon all these years. And the way he was interfering between that Cena-Ambrose match, he was just a lackey. Now obviously I was thinking to myself, not everybody can be on top at the same time, but the fact that the WWE is willing to run with Seth Rollins, take that risk, and he's running with it. I'm really happy with it. But we complain a lot about WWE sort of not letting these guys go. Yet here's like, you know what? John Cena and Randy Orton is completely secondary to the primary storyline. So do you think this makes the Ambrose Rollins match that much better, where it's like, you know what? You have the main event scene? Or do you see it as a way where it's like, if this doesn't go well, then we're just going to go right back to square one?
I mean, you could say that about any feud, but it just feels like a breath of fresh air. We're having a main event that doesn't involve John Cena, doesn't involve Randy Orton, doesn't involve all these people we've seen over and over again. It's two new guys that they're giving the ball to, and they've earned it, and they're just going. That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is very much a test to see, if these guys can really pull off a main event. It's the perfect kind of safe environment. It's not one of the major pay-per-views. You just have Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose main event it, see how it goes. They'll probably, if it goes the way I think it's going to go, they'll probably have Cena and Orton actually somewhere in the middle of the card because they'll probably want to space out the Hell in a Cell matches.
Yeah.
And then you have Ambrose and Rollins ending the show. And if things go well, I think that is going to put a lot of confidence behind these guys, and we're going to see them in more main events, possibly even without a John Cena and a Randy Orton involved as well.
Plus, just think about what we've been saying over the last couple of weeks, how every segment that Ambrose and Rollins are involved in are the best segments of the night. So why wouldn't this be the main stage?
Yeah, so I think we're all agreeing it's going to be an awesome match. It's a lot is on the line for both men, so I'm looking forward to it. So the thing that I do want to bring up, going back to John Cena and Randy Orton, is that whenever we've had these two face off, it's been this incredible storyline or for the championship, but all of that is effectively thrown out the window. This is very much, if you think about it, just a Hell in a Cell match. There's not a lot of storyline put into this. It's not months. These guys have been going elsewhere, but now they're sort of clashing here. So my question to both of you is, do you think this will actually make you enjoy the match more because it doesn't have the pressure of the championship, of this very deep, dark storyline with the punting and everything else? We just have these two decade-long superstars going at it inside the cell.
I mean, Randy Orton kind of set up the storyline in a way with that whole I want to face the best thing, and they have 2 weeks to work with that. How, we've been clashing heads for all these years. Let's find out who's the best. And Randy Orton still does have 2 weeks to punt John Cena's dad at some point.
Yes, very true, very true. Earlier I said that this match was thrown together. If you're going to throw a match together, at least these guys have a ton of history, so it pretty much writes itself. So I don't think it's that bad. And yeah, without the whole title pressure, I think it allows people to judge it, be a little bit easier on the match because it's not supposed to be the match of the show. So people might actually look at it with a more forgiving set of eyes.
Yeah, I think a generation ago, if you would have taken Triple H and Shawn Michaels and just thrown them in a match, it would probably feel about the same.
Very good.
I'd be a little more excited for that, though.
Yeah, but that's actually very important. That's an interesting point. We've gone to that point where you can just throw these two guys, and it's like boom. Everybody sort of remembers a little bit of their history, and for everything else, I guess there's the WWE Network. So we'll find out more about these Hell in a Cell matches as we have 2 weeks before the show. So there's still some time there. Now, something that I want to get to before talking about the leader of the Yes Movement, Dana Bryan, is that, Ryan, during the show, you yourself pointed out that the commentary team is, we've complained about it a lot, but it just doesn't seem to be getting any better, or it's certainly making us lower the volume more. So how have you been feeling, man? Are you okay? I know you're under the weather. Is that the reason why? Does Michael Cole have anything to do with this?
It doesn't help. It definitely doesn't help. I just think the main thing about them is just that the things that they say just I don't think they help put anyone over a lot of times. The whole thing with where they're yelling out the catchphrases when Michael Cole's like, when I say oos, and then somebody else said, you say oh, and stuff like that. Like, that is just completely lame, and I think only makes a lot of these characters seem less cool. So, I don't know. That's really just my only point, is just some of the things they say really just come off as so lame and so forced that they're just begging you to like things, and from that, you just don't want to like them.
There's no chemistry. It feels like there's Jerry Lawler and his dumb dad jokes over here. There's Michael Cole and his commentary there. Then there's JBL, who kind of plays the heel every now and then when it's convenient, but then he'll be a face every now and then. There's no chemistry. The only interaction is when Cole gets told to shut up by JBL, which happens just all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it really just comes off as a complete mess. I mean, I know a lot of it is not Michael Cole's fault, even though he probably takes the brunt of the blame. Vince is completely in his ear the entire time. He's just following instructions. JBL can sometimes be a little too much when he goes off and just yelling. He goes off on tangents. And Jerry the King Lawler is just completely inhuman. He is not even a person anymore. Like,
that'd be a quote.
No, and it's not his fault. He has been, to use a video game term, he has been completely nerfed to the point where he can't be a human being anymore. He just regurgitates lines, and I feel like he's screaming, and he just wants to be his own perverted self again. And I miss that Jerry Lawler.
I don't even know if that's really it, because now he's old and he just plays these dumb old dad jokes basically all the time that kind of come off creepy depending on who they're told to.
Yeah, that's a little bit of that Jerry coming back, but for the most part, he is the PG
but
Jerry Lawler.
But even if you go listen back then, it wasn't just all that. He would have like quick witty remarks constantly, and that's what made Jerry Lawler awesome.
When he could be a heel as well.
Yeah, but that's why Jerry Lawler and JR worked so well, because they were constantly playing off of each other, but that just doesn't exist here.
Yeah, I think that's the best example, because back then the announcing team was part of the program, of the product. You heard Jim Ross, you heard Jerry the King, and they had very specific characters. Like, sometimes Jerry the King was involved in the match, but keeping back in the day, he was still very much an active wrestler. Jim Ross, he was more involved with the interviewing process and all that. But now we've gotten to the point where the commentators are basically audible advertisements for us. They sort of, whatever the match isn't telling, but that's not related to the characters, they'll tell us. So like the network, or you got to go to the website, they'll tell you all the advertisements before we even go to commercial break. At least that's how it feels to me. And to put it in a better example, for those that have listened, the team of Paul Heyman, Jim Ross for me was amazing, because you put those two together and you could tell there was something. There was also a bit of realism. Even Jim Ross admitted that Paul Heyman, definitely pushed his buttons a couple of times, but it made for entertaining television. Now we've gone to the point where it's just three guys that are very conveniently placed, so whatever the WWE has to sell to us that week, they'll play that character, even if it breaks whatever the hell they've said for the past week or two.
No, it's true. It's basically moved from the feeling of sports commentators to
shills
to an infomercial is what it feels like a lot of times.
It's almost like, say we're three old men sitting in a park, we're just like commentating on what people are doing. Hey, look at that guy. Look at the other guy. It's like, okay, see now, old man, can you please stop? It's kind of weird.
So we're basically the old people from the Muppets, is what you're saying.
Yes.
And one other thing that is just completely annoys me, and I know we didn't expect to go on this long about this, but the whole thing of Michael Cole always making excuses for baby faces when they do something just as bad as a heel did, whether they steal something or whatever. It's like, you can still like the guy, but why do you have to make these excuses like, oh, he was just borrowing that, or, whatever it is.
So wait a minute, Ryan, you're telling me that Sheamus stealing Del Rio's car and destroying it is not a good thing to do?
So Stone Cold pouring cement over Vince McMahon's vehicle, even though it was cool, it was actually vandalism and very much legal? What?
Yeah, it's like you didn't see like Jerry Lawler say or Jim Ross saying that Stone Cold destroying McMahon's vehicle was like an admirable thing. They just were calling it like it was. But I don't know. It's annoying and it comes off as very forced when they're just trying to be like, hey, no, it's okay to still like this guy even though he's doing horrible things.
Yeah, so sadly the commentating is not all that enjoyable. Honestly, one of my dreams, you guys know that, has always been to do commentary for a legitimate wrestling company. And Jim Ross was my idol. And now it's gone to the point where, I have noise-canceling headphones, and I only take them off to listen to the promos. Like, Dean Ambrose is talking great. If not, I'll put the headphones back on and listen to you guys or something else. Juan. I know, man, but why? So, for everybody listening, I'd actually like to know, do you enjoy the commentating team? Do you mute the commentating team? Or do you find some kind of distraction to pull yourself out of the inhumanity that is Jerry the King Lawler's mouth? Let us know by leaving a comment on the YouTube channel or sending a tweet. And Ryan's looking at me like, whoa, that can be perceived elsewhere. You know what? I'm moving on. I'm moving on, man.
Yeah, that's the word you were looking for.
Yeah. So in sadder news, the leader of the U.S. movement, Daniel Bryan. It feels like seemingly forever since we last saw him, and according to some news that broke out by F4WOnline.com, that may be the case still. We thought that he was going to be coming back for next year's Royal Rumble, but apparently he actually needs even more surgery, okay? This is not over. He doesn't have a lot of feeling still in some parts of his body, so the speculation, and obviously it's dirt sheets, so take it with a grain of salt, but it's that they want him back by WrestleMania 31, but even that's still in question. So obviously this is just, it sucks, I guess is the only way to put it. I wanted to sort of bring it up here and just get a discussion of, does this really mean that Daniel Bryan's like a full-time career may potentially never happen? I mean, think about it. How long has he been out with all these injuries? Would you as a company even take a risk on a guy like that?
Certainly the longer he's out to a certain point is the more it's going to negatively affect his career. This is an interesting situation because he was supposed to get surgery back at the end of the summer, like another surgery, but then they said, oh, he doesn't need it. Now it looks like he needs it again, so maybe they messed up their evaluation. But either way, it's like, I don't really see how, if he's not going to be ready by Royal Rumble, how much more ready he could even possibly be by WrestleMania, considering there's not that big of a span of time between those two events. Maybe they can get him in at the last minute, but I kind of have my doubts of whether or not he'll even be at WrestleMania 31 the way it's looking.
I mean, it sucks, but I'd rather see Daniel Bryan come back one day than come back too soon, and now we're starting to build these new things as kind of a replacement for Daniel Bryan until he's ready to come back. So just take your time, heal up, and please return one day, Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, exactly. I think that John Cena and other guys have pretty much revealed coming back too soon is not really a good idea ever. And this article notes that he has still not regained strength in his arm. So think about that. It's not just a matter of getting surgery and recovering from it. Obviously, he's probably lost a lot of muscle tone, strength, so it's a matter of getting back into that wrestling condition. So, yeah, it may even be SummerSlam for all we know. It may even be later.
I mean, he would be a good night after WrestleMania return if that's in the cards, Don't force him back too soon just to get a WrestleMania build-up.
And speaking of forcing things back too soon, it's time for this week's Tweet of the Week.
Wow. Caught me off guard with that All right. It's that time of the week again. Do you know what time it is, Juan? Tell me.
Time for Teletubbies?
Yes, close enough. It's time for Teletubbies! And this week's Tweet of the Week is brought to you by ShyCat11624, who we'll be hearing more from later. But this week's Tweet of the Week is #RawAtlanta. The Triple H and Stephanie McMahon standard bet was for only $1, not $9.99?
Thank you, Keith, for that somewhat maybe beautiful tweet of the week that certainly puts things into perspective. And Keith,
Yes?
you know what else puts things into perspective?
Would it be Ryan's sexy mug on my phone and or tablet when I wake up first thing on a weekend morning?
That is actually exactly it. That is exactly what I was going to say, because when you go over to youtube.com/ByteThatCast every Saturday or Sunday, Ryan's going to be there talking wrestling. You know, if you wake up and he's not there, freak out. Send us a tweet at ByteThatCast, or even like us on Facebook, and you can send some of that information, complain. You know what? I disagree with Ryan's opinion, much like most people do. So, something else that we're doing
Thanks
this
for
week.
that.
Anytime, man. Something else that we're doing this week on Thursday, Fight Night returns. Ryan and myself play WWE2K15. We do some commentary. It's going to be a very, very fun experience to watch. I think it was easily the most fun match we've had, recording, commentating, editing. It's just a crazy time. Please go do yourself a favor and check that out. And now, after all these plugs, there's only something else that we got to talk about. And just a quick note, I can't seem to talk this week, but we'll keep going anyway.
We'll truck.
Exactly, sir. So, Chrisley knows best.
Yeah, speaking of not delivering.
Yeah, I think this is something that people were initially like, okay, so this is another guest host, and then what happened?
Okay, Chrisley, worst debut ever, man. They air his vignettes in between Raw for weeks, months, okay? I was so hyped up for Chrisley's debut. I thought he was going to come out and this guy was going to be the next big heel on Monday Night Raw. And then he comes out and he's sitting in the front row and he's just being all gracious and everything. Is this not the biggest disappointment for a heel debut ever? You know, no Snapdragons were snapping.
I know,
no
man.
class, not ass. No couch time, whatever the hell he said. Beyond couch time, whatever the heck. I was super let down, man.
So let's back up a second for those of us whose TV time consists only of 3 hours on Monday. Who's Chrisley?
It's pretty much that. I think that Ryan and I only base off our knowledge on the advertisement that run between the commercial breaks.
All right. Yeah. Basically, since you don't have USA Network,
Right.
Keith, you probably don't see these Todd Chrisley advertisements. But basically, it's been going on for many months. Even maybe as long, I don't know, they're on the second season, so maybe it's been over a year. But they advertise this guy who has a family, and it's a reality show, and I'll be generous and call him just an effeminate man. But yes, he has very obnoxious catchphrases. And I was expecting big things on Raw this week, and he let me down.
Just like he expects big things? If I'm picking
Oh my god! No! Oh,
yeah,
man.
no.
What?
Roll it,
Yeah.
print it, publish it. I want it on this show.
There comes a point in time when you're like, yep, there's a reason the three of us are here in this podcast, and each one of us has a purpose, and that is it. So,
right there.
so pretty much, so Chrisley, yeah, that's about it. I mean, and we had yet another guest host. That's Nene Leakes or Leakes.
WikiLeaks.
She related to
Nene?
Roman Reigns somehow. But yeah, Nene Leakes, who's from Real Housewives, is it?
Real Housewives of Atlanta. I heard them say that.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it. So we had two reality show stars, if you want to call them that, sort of show up on Raw. And just a quick comment. I mean, is this working? Like, who does this appeal to? Is there anybody that legitimately tunes in for their 5-10 second appearance?
Okay, I get the Chrisley thing. You know, it's cross-promotion, it's USA Network, whatever. I get it. But this whole Nene Leakes, whatever the hell her name is, nobody. First of all, I had to look it up to see who the hell this person was, and I'm sure a lot of people who watch Raw don't waste their time with Real Housewives or whatever. If you do, maybe
God bless you.
Tune into something else. So this just kind of reeked of desperation of like, hey, we got like an E or F list celebrity. Why don't you see how cool we are for, you know, managing to haul in this one? It was just really stupid. And apparently, according to live crowd reactions, people in attendance, she got like hardcore booed. But apparently they sort of they softened that up for the television broadcast. So she's obviously not popular.
Do you think that there's a threshold somewhere that like people pay to be on Raw or something, or maybe that's why all these crappy celebrities always show up, because they're there to promote their thing and they're giving WWE money to do so?
Oh, absolutely. That's got to be the reason. But once again, and this seems to be a recurring theme, we as fans sort of get the boot. We get punished for all these things because it's like, hey, we'll promote your thing. We'll put limited advertisement on the WWE Network, but us here that are sort of, we're trucking, you know, we're here supporting them. We have to stick to Chrisley knows best at ringside.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many people actually pay to be on Raw. You got to think the whole Chrisley thing was like a USA mandated thing.
Oh, that was totally USA.
Just like,
yeah, but
you know, how
Nene
we
totally
see,
paid.
Yeah, probably. She probably needed it. But obviously, like when we see Big Show or somebody on Psych, you know, that's just the other thing. It's like WWE kind of gets the same promotion from other shows. So I get that. Yeah, I think we can do without the celebrities, finger quotations, that nobody's ever heard of. I mean, there used to be a time where they actually had decent names on the show. I mean, they did have Wolverine. I can't remember his name.
Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman a couple months ago. So, you know you can do better, WWE. Keep Nene Leakes off.
But at the same time, they have a streak going now because for 2 weeks in a row, we've had to ask who the F is this person. There was Nene this week, and then last week there was the person with Kathy. Hodair or Hodier or whatever her name is.
Yeah, they're a little bit more recognizable. They have like a morning talk show. So I actually want to bring up an interesting question to those that listen to the podcast. Is there anybody listening to the show that got into wrestling because of a guest host? Like just at any point, you know, we've had sort of celebrity appearances all the way back to the Attitude Era. So is there anybody that like saw Chuck Norris and then was immediately like, just, holy crap, I got to start watching wrestling or something?
Yeah.
Let us know by sending a tweet at Byte That Cast or leaving a comment below if you're watching on the YouTube channel. So after that, what better way to just smoothing things out and, you know, make things just all bright and shiny than by talking about Justin Roberts being released. I mean, he was just on Raw. Apparently, he is this week's Talk is Jericho guest with an interview that was filmed before all of this happened. But then we find out, yeah, he was released. And apparently, now this is still going on. He apparently flipped Michael Cole the finger at some point during Raw before, or something about his release. So basically, there's something about his conduct. Even Jim Ross.
Is that what you read from Squared Circle or something about the flip off?
No, and like even Jim Ross himself wrote a blog post, like not indicating that it did happen, but that he's hearing enough things about it to sort of comment on that situation. So obviously it's a possibility, it's not, but Jim Ross leaving a blog about that certainly makes it a percentage that it could happen. But I wanted to sort of bring up just, number one, did this catch you by surprise? Number two, just what did you think about Justin Roberts as an announcer?
Well, first of all, yes, it was a complete surprise considering he is the lead ring announcer in WWE, so obviously this is pretty shocking. As far as the whole Michael Cole incident goes, This was apparently the end of his contract, so last day of his contract. So he might have knew beforehand that he was getting released or that they weren't going to renew his contract. So that might have been his sort of don't give an F attitude towards Michael Cole. So it could be one or the other. I don't necessarily believe that might have caused his release. He probably knew this was his last Raw. And what did I think of Justin Roberts as announcer? I really liked him. And I don't really have a whole lot to say other than that. A lot of people will remember the whole tie incident where Daniel Bryan got released for strangling him. And I give Justin Roberts a lot of credit for selling that, like a champ.
Because he was getting choked out, man. How are you supposed to sell that?
Well, if he was hamming it up a little bit, I give him a ton of credit because it was amazing. But yeah, Justin Roberts was great, and I'm sad to see him go.
If the whole thing about him knowing that it was his last night and he flipped Michael Cole like one final hurrah, that's a hell of a way to go out. Now, Justin Roberts was awesome, but Tony Chimmel, he was not. Because if Tony Chimmel came back because of this, I'm just throwing that out there, I would be a happy man. So we could hear more things.
Isn't he kind of still around?
He does some house shows, apparently. He's sort of the backup guy. So yeah, there's a chance that, I know Eaton, Cody Rhodes' wife, she's doing main event, so there's a chance that she may be doing SmackDown now. So, it's not exactly the end of the world, but it's certainly an interesting
if Edge
situation.
Comes back at some point, we can hear Superstar. I'll be a happy man.
Yeah, just a quick note on his contract but not being renewed. Most WWE wrestlers work as contractors. I myself work as that, and legally, at least over here, if your contract is not going to be renewed, you're notified 30 days notice. So if that were the case, he's had a month to know his contract is not being renewed. So maybe it was a mutual thing. Obviously the wording that WWE used definitely implied that they are the ones that chose not to renew, not him. So we don't really know anything else, but it's interesting to see once again how much like CM Punk, we can see a guy on a Raw and then poof, he's gone. You may never see him again, especially with an announcer that you hear all the time.
Yeah, I think it's a good to kind of go back to the little flip off Michael Cole thing because that just excites me a little bit. I think it's very likely that he flipped him off because it was the last day of his contract. Because what are the odds that he happens to do something outlandish on the very last day of his contract? You know what I mean?
How's that ethical?
It's not like, yeah, but you know what I mean? It's not like he just happened to do this crazy thing and they're like, oh, it's the last day, so we'll just release him. How convenient. I think he was just he was going out strong.
I'm just picturing that. You know what? So Michael Cole, so I'm done. So F you, man. F you. Like,
it's like Half-Baked, the guy in the fast food restaurant.
Man, crazy time. So Justin Roberts, we'll probably see him. Anything from TNA to even Global Force Wrestling, New Japan. Anything's really an option for him. So he's a legitimate, huge, big-time wrestling fan. I listened to him. I believe it was on Art of Wrestling or something like that. You can find a ton of footage from back in the WWF days, just him sitting at ringside. So this is a guy that definitely loves wrestling, and he'll probably continue pursuing it. So something else that I want to get to, switching gears a little bit, regarding WWE 2K15. Now, it comes out in just a couple of weeks for previous generation consoles, that being PS3 and Xbox 360. It's coming out in November for PS4 and Xbox One. However, we did get some more information about the Season Pass, sort of the paid content that you have to get after you paid for the game. So, Mr. McNulty, you have that information for us. It's not a weekend, but we want to hear you, man. What do you got for us?
All right. I'll go through this quickly. I know we want to get to some questions. So they revealed some 2K15 DLC. Of course, you can get their $199 accelerator thing that I believe unlocks all the goodies in the standard release version. But anyway, the ones that were revealed are a part of the 2K Showcase mode. So we know we're getting Triple H and Shawn Michaels and CM Punk and John Cena. So here are the downloadable ones. You got one that's called One More Match, which is focused on the Randy Orton-Christian rivalry in 2011, which the playable superstars are Christian, Orton, Edge, Henry, and Sheamus. along with some playable 2011 arenas, including Extreme Rules Over Limit, Capital Punishment. That's going to be $9.99. All right, next showcase mode.
Convenient.
Hall of Pain, a story focused on the top matches of WWE superstar Mark Henry, with playable superstars being Henry, Big Show, Kane, Jey Uso, Jimmy Uso, Sheamus, Great Khali, Randy Orton, Daniel Bryan, and Ryback. Playable arenas of Vengeance 2011, SmackDown, and WrestleMania 29. And that is also $9.99.
$9.99.
Final showcase mode, Path of the Warrior, story focused around the career of the great Ultimate Warrior. Playable WWE Hall of Famers, Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, and Sergeant Slaughter. Some playable WWE legends of Honky Tonk Man, Rick Rude, Macho King, and Colonel Mustafa, who, am I bad that I don't know who that is? And is he from The Lion King?
Oh my God! just keep.
And
going.
that's Mufasa. But continue.
Okay. Hold on. Do you guys know who he is?
I've seen a match or two, but can't really tell much about who he is.
All right. I don't feel as bad. Playable superstars of Undertaker and Hunter Hearst Helmsley, access to Hall of Fame ring announcers Howard Finkel and WWE managers Jimmy Hart, Bobby Heenan, Paul Bearer, Sherry, Sid Justice, and General Adnan. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Playable arenas of WrestleMania 6, 7, 12, SummerSlams 1988, 1990, 1991, Saturday Night's Main Event, Madison Square Garden. And this is available for just
$9.99.
We're also getting a WCW pack, which has WCW superstars Fit Finlay, Lord Steven Regal, Bam Bam Bigelow, Diamond Dallas Page, and Lex Luger. That is not $9.99, but $7.99. NXT Arrival pack, which has JBL, Adam Rose, The Ascension, and then playable NXT Diva Emma. That is $6.99, and then there's going to be a Moves pack as well, with alternate versions of Sister Abigail, and some cool gut wrenches made popular by Cesaro, and that is $3.99. So there you go. Thoughts, questions, concerns?
No. There's something that I got to bring up that is the reason that I am upset. I don't know if you guys knew about this, but Paige is actually part of this whole thing, and the only way you can unlock Paige, who is a current diva in the WWE, a top diva, is if you get the season pass itself that costs $25. So the only way to get Paige is if you buy like the gold pack. I mean, what the hell? We're not talking about a legend or something.
And that's the one that unlocks everything, because I think altogether this costs around $25. So if you just buy it all at once, you commit to getting it, you'll get Paige. It's kind of lame though, because some of this is cool because I kind of like to pick and choose some of this content. Like, I'd probably want to get the Path of the Warrior and the WCW and NXT packs, but I'm not too crazy about getting, like, the Christian pack or the Hall of Pain one as much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of all the feuds they could have they chose two feuds SmackDown circa 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, but like, I'm not pumped to get, I get 2011 SmackDown? How is the arena any different?
I know, right?
Yeah. I have concerns about this personally because from my experience with WWE games, DLC kind of segments the audience and creates all these compatibility issues. Now, this is a lot of content to potentially create that. Like, I remember playing WWE 13 and they were getting, like, they had superstars that they were, like, you could pay for is what I'm trying to say. And then if I had those superstars and my friend didn't, then there would be this issue where we couldn't play online. And I just hope that they fix that.
As far as I know, because we have 2K14 and all that, you can play against those. The problem is, like, say you create a superstar and you upload and he has one move that's a downloadable move, then I can't download him. I need the DLC.
That's
the
crazy.
problem is when you have this amount of characters that, each one has a move or two that's unique to them, you're basically forced to get the season pass if you really want to have a smooth online experience without having to worry about, can I download this? Or even arenas. Like sometimes they'll have something where it's like, oh, there's a piece from this arena, then you got to get the DLC so you can download that. So there's a lot of great stuff going on.
So to summarize it, if you want to get the game, you can pay $60. But if you want to get the whole game, you got to pay
not $9.99,
$85
plus tax.
Yeah. Yes, plus tax. So it's quite a bit of content. They usually don't release story mode type things.
$99.99.
But yeah, it's a hefty price tag to get the full game.
Yeah, and a couple of people have been complaining about 2K doing that with other games from their franchises. So maybe that's sort of how they do things. But yeah, fork some money over, get those savings out.
All that being said, if they announce a PC release, I'm all in.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to summarize. Just throw me a PC version, and you know what? I think we can make do with whatever we have. So we're complaining about the money, but not if there's a PC version.
I'll pick up what you put down. If there's a PC version, you got me.
Exactly, sir. So thank you, Ryan, for that bit of information. And before we close out the show, as always, we always like to answer some things that people send us through the Twitter machine. So, Mr. Poshik, what do you have this week?
Well, I have questions too. I'll ask you questions too. How does it work? No
Two
riddles.
things that are to be
Questions
asked.
too, I'll answer you.
Oh.
Well, look at you. All right. Question number 1 from the man, the myth, the tweet of the week himself, Mr. Shycat11624. When do you think the authority will end?
I'll start with this one, and I think it ends effectively when Daniel Bryan comes back, or at least when, like, you have Daniel Bryan, you have Roman Reigns, you have enough people that you don't need a group to sort of carry the show, because you can have Roman Reigns turn heel when everybody's like, oh my God, he was going to be the top face. So you have that variety that you can afford to remove Triple H and Stephanie and all that without really losing the top heels in the company.
So are we defining the authority as the entire group or just Stephanie and Triple H?
I think it's the group because, I mean, as we saw with Raw, they're very much there for a purpose. They want to cherry pick whoever they want to be that top guy.
I would say, though, that as long as Stephanie and Triple H are acting as sort of general managers of the show, then that's the authority.
Yeah.
So basically, when we get a general manager, that could be a legitimate answer.
I think there's going to come a time where the authority moves to the sidelines and are just kind of like the shadow figure above a general manager, but they'll be around for years in the entity of Triple H and Stephanie McMahon.
Yeah, I agree with Keith. I think right now that they can keep this going as long as they want to, because at first it was really Daniel Bryan was the main opposition to the authority. But as you can see, they can add members like Seth Rollins and add new elements where now the authority is against Ambrose and Cena. So they can just keep shifting things around and keeping it going as long as they want. Like Keith said, I think there'll eventually be a time where they might step aside. I see Vince McMahon showing up at some point to kind of usurp them and input like a general manager or something way down the road when they want to have some big finale with the authority getting too crazy with their power and how they're running the show. Eventually Vince is going to show up and put a stop to their madness, if you will. So I think it's a ways away. Maybe WrestleMania time. Maybe they go a whole nother year. But they have the flexibility to kind of keep it going as long as they want, really.
Yeah, I think flexibility is the best answer because hypothetically they can remove Randy Kane and everybody else and like switch things around. So it's Triple H and Stephanie sort of guiding these people. So think of this as a permanent evolution, if you will. So thank you, Shy Cat, for that question. And our answer is basically, you know what? Right now things are running pretty well. I guess they're doing what they need to do. So until we see that they no longer serve a purpose, then they should pretty much stick, and it may not even end for a very long time. So, Mr. Poshik, time for question.
Yes.
2 numbers, yeah?
Yeah, it is question number 2 time. And this question is from D Morgan 981. Do you think Damien Sandow is the funniest person on the roster right now? If not, then who? My answer is yes, by a long shot.
There's really no other competition, to be honest. So I really like what Sandow's doing. I think it's pretty hilarious. It hasn't gotten old yet, and it's working. And I think him and The Miz have great chemistry. It's clear that they've really found something with these two, and I think everyone in the back probably is enjoying it just as much as everyone watching it. So keep it going while it's good.
Plus, it just keeps getting better week by week. Like this week when he was tugging on his own beard and had the camera and stuff. It was just amazing.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect character. And I mean, the crowd reaction says it all. It's gotten to the point where it's not The Miz. It's almost like the stunt double is actually the primary character, the one that people like. I mean, the chants, everything. I mean, when he was selling the knee next to The Miz, that stuff is gold because you almost always want to have that guy. It's no longer about like parroting different characters or something. It's like, you know what? I'm focused on you. Whatever it is you do, I'll do. And even if it looks ridiculous.
They were chanting Mizdow. So I think that tells you something.
Exactly.
The crowd was chanting Mizdow, so obviously they're doing something right.
Yeah, so pretty much unanimous. Damien Sandow's awesome, and he really just needs to keep doing everything he's doing right now. So thank you, D. Morgan, for that question. Thank you, Shy Cat, once again. Remember, you can send us questions at Byte That Cast. So for everything else, Mr. McNulty, why don't you fill us in?
All right, we want to thank everyone for listening once again this week. Just a few quick reminders before we go. Don't forget to write us a review on iTunes and Stitcher. That actually goes a really long way for us. So if you listen to the show through either of those channels, make sure to write us one there. As always, check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ByteThatCast, and hit that subscribe button. Like Juan said, we got Fight Night coming up this week, as well as I'll be doing another discussion video. Hopefully I'll be feeling better by then. So once again, thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.